Welcome to this week's Risk Report. I'm Armstead Whitney. We're going to begin in California, where LinkedIn confirmed that 6.5 million passwords were leaked on a Russian hacking forum. The passwords were encrypted, but over 3.5 million have already been deciphered. Now, hackers could use this information to modify your profile or steal contact information from your network or attempt to use your information to gain access to other accounts. Now, if you have a LinkedIn account, you should change your password immediately. And make sure your password follows best security practices, such as a minimum of 8 characters. You should include upper and lowercase letters, numbers, and also special characters. And you should use a different password for each web service that you use. Finally, you need to change your password regularly. We're now going to go to Phoenix, where there's some domestic terrorist activity going on. 5 individuals have been injured from 3 improvised explosive devices, or IEDs, built inside of discarded flashlights designed to explode when they are turned on. Now, the bombs are considered fairly sophisticated, and authorities fear that the bomber will start building more powerful and more lethal bombs. Devices have been left in public areas where victims are likely to pick them up and attempt to turn them on. Now, police are telling everyone in the Phoenix area not to touch any flashlights. So we'll continue to monitor this breaking story. Is New York City at the risk of the greatest loss to hurricane damage? Well, let's go there now. Well, the answer is yes. A new study performed by the data analysis firm CoreLogic has identified New York City as the riskiest city for financial loss from a hurricane. Now, while the risk for a hurricane to make landfall in New York City is pretty low, the impact is real high. And that's due to the storm surge, not from high wind speeds. Now, New York City simply does not have the infrastructure in place to handle the amount of flooding brought in by a hurricane storm surge. And the study estimates that property damage alone could reach $168 billion. So businesses in New York City need to consider incorporating hurricane preparedness and response into their plans. And for our clients, we have a lot of hurricane information and training and tools found in your Preparis portal. Well, food safety is back in the news. And with toxic tuna and E. coli outbreaks, we're now going to go to Athens, Georgia, where we're joined by Dr. Michael Doyle, Director of Food Safety at the University of Georgia. Dr. Doyle, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, tuna containing radiation are being discovered off the coast of California. Are these radioactive tuna the result of the radiation released from Japan?
As best as we know, that's correct. But at this point in time, the level of radiation present in the tuna is very low, and it's not a public health concern.
Is the tuna safe to eat?
From the radiation standpoint, yes, it should be safe to eat tuna at this point in time.
Should we be worried about radiation in other foods?
Well, our FDA and I'm sure the Department of Public Health in California are monitoring these types of foods, especially those coming from Japan. And to my knowledge, at this point in time, we don't have any issues or reasons to be concerned.
Is food from Japan being tested by the FDA?
Well, I can't speak for the FDA. I don't know what they're doing with foods from Japan specifically. In general, the FDA tests less than 0.5% of foods that are imported into the U.S., but if they're targeting specific foods from Japan, you'll have to get that information directly from FDA.
For businesses with employees in Japan, is it safe for them to eat dairy, vegetables, and other meat products from Japan?
Well, that's an uncertainty, and if I were living in Japan, I would spend a few $100s to buy a Geiger counter and monitor the foods myself.
So you're recommending that people in Japan take their own preparedness measures?
Yeah, a Geiger counter is relatively inexpensive and easy to use, and so it could give you peace of mind if you have concerns about radioactivity in your food.
Dr. Doyle, we're now going to turn to an E. coli outbreak. Now, so 14 people in 6 states have been sickened by E. coli over the past few months. Dr. Doyle, is there a known source for this outbreak?
CDC has not been able to identify a source. The typical sources of these types of E. coli are beef, in particular undercooked ground beef, produce, fresh produce that hasn't been processed or cooked. And handling animals, primarily farm animals, and in particular, we call them ruminants. These are not only cattle, but goats and lambs.
What is the best way for people to prevent E. coli infections?
Well, one of the main things that we all can do very easily is make sure that ground beef, that is hamburgers, are properly cooked. And the rule of thumb is cook them to about 165 internal temperature. Can be monitored with a handheld thermometer. Especially important for kids and elderly who are most susceptible to these types of infections and experience more severe illnesses. In terms of produce, that's a little more challenging because we normally don't cook fresh produce. If we want to eat a salad raw, we're just going to have to rely on the processor if it's a fresh cut product, or we can prepare lettuce, for example, ourselves, and that's what we do in our home is buy the lettuce and remove the outer leaves, and if the harmful bacteria are present, that's where they usually are, on the outer leaves of lettuce. Wash your hands and then wash the rest of the lettuce, and you should be good to go. In terms of farm animals, especially those in petting zoos where people from the city might have contact farm animals, if you're going to pet these animals or handle them in some way, wash your hands immediately after doing so, and keep your hands away from your mouth and eyes.
Dr. Doyle, thank you for joining us. We're now going to go to London, where they're busy preparing for the upcoming 2012 Summer Olympics. Now, the events all began on May 19th, and major disruptions are expected to occur between now and the closing ceremonies on August 12th. Officials are expecting over 5.5 million people to visit the city. This is going to put a big strain on the local infrastructure and also make London a target for terrorism. Now, officials encourage local businesses to implement an alternate work plan to put in place during the Games. Now, while $1.6 billion has been spent to improve security at the Games, officials are encouraging all individuals, including businesses, to report any suspicious activity. So clients with offices in London are encouraged to check out our 2012 Summer Olympic Games Preparedness Primer, which is found on your Prepares portal. Well, that's it for this week. We'll see you next time on the Weekly Risk Report.